Hi folks, and in this video what we're going to play around with is adding arrays and doing a bit more advanced work for appending them. On top of that, we're also going to get some custom text that you can type in through your heads-up display, which will then appear as your player character name. So first thing we're going to do is have a look at the previous code that we had from last time, including the main structure. And in this regards, we're going to change the main structure from being a single string named variable to an array of variables, oddly enough. So if we press this button here, we can now add multiple names to this lovely list. So if I add one in, we'll call the first one Dave, the second array element Bob, and the third array element Alex. Now, if I save that, what I can do is go to our lovely code here, to the graph, find the text box. I've just gutted it so there's nothing in there at this moment in time. Get the info string for the structure, break that. Now we have an array which we need to try and get and put into this lovely return node. We do that by typing the word get from this and a reference and then attaching here. So what this code actually now says is find the structure, the main structure of the names, and get index 0 and then print it to the name part. Now if we have a look at the structure, 0 is equal to Dave. So if we press play, the name Dave should appear there. Now just to check that this works, if I then set this to 2, if we double check, 2 of course was the third object along because arrays start at 0, which is Alex. If I then press play, there you go, Alex's name appears on our HUD. So what we're going to do now is we're going to figure out a way of adding another name to our HUD for our custom input. If we go to the designer view and scroll down, there's a lovely bit called inputs. Instead of a common, which it tends to be an output related, what we're going to do is actually add a direct input for our system. With this, we're going to use an editable text, drop this box in here, and then we're going to play around with the sizing. And no content in it at this moment in time, and just change the color of this so we can actually see it as it appears in the world. Now, if I type the words enter player name here, that should then just appear as a default at this moment in time. Just justify it a bit so it's a bit easier to read. Now if we scroll the way down through this, we have the option of on text committed changed or committed, sorry. So this will be a real-time update, whereas this will be when you press return. For this one we'll use the actual changed, which is a bit more memory intensive, but it shows it working quite nicely. So if I press this button, there we go. What we have is the actual text, which we can change, and we're going to add this into our information struct. So what we're going to do is, in this time, instead of setting a structure like we have done with previous variables, is we're going to get the structure, because remember, we're going to add this information to the end of this element. We're then going to drag off here and break the main structure, and then what we have here is the lovely names. Going to drag out of here and then type the word append array. Append basically means to add to the end of this object. We're then going to drag this out like so, type the words make array, and then attach like this. Oh, what we've noticed is it hasn't actually converted. So if we delete that, drag off here and type make array instead, it's made it a string array, which I can now associate to a text. You can't go from a whole array to another array with some sort of transfer. You have to make the transfer, first of all, to the correct data type, like so. Now, if I drag this in to here, I go to compile, I then go into our HUD, like so, and I start typing away. Oh, nothing's actually happened. That's because at this moment in time, if we go back to our HUD, and our text, which is outputting the data, it's still outputting Alex's name because, of course, it is number 2 on our index here. So what we need to do is find the last piece of data. We do this by typing the word last index and placing it into here instead. So now it's going to update this with the last index data. So if I then go down to here, make sure everything's compiled, press play, then of course it's saying enter player name, and now instead I can type the name Robert, and of course our data is now updated. If we had this instead on commit on the user interface, it would have only worked when I press enter, but of course because we had it committing to changes, it worked throughout the entirety of the actual real-time update. And that, folks, is how you append data for an array, and also how you put data on through a text widget inside a HUD.